like to say no. I bound to what's in my headphones. Chill the night, lay back to the scopes. Set my mind on cruise control. Music revolves around my mind like it's an access. Sometimes I'm like Miss Hill. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Artists Like Us, new podcast here. And today we have a very special guest, and it's not because we share the same last name. But this dude has been, when it comes to just his analysis from, the NBA, and then when it comes to his amazing podcast, Hip to the Games, where he infuses hip hop and basketball together. Just a eloquent speaker. The guy knows his stuff, and just really passionate about both of those things, and amongst other things. But I did one of his podcasts prior, or I did an episode for Hip to the Game, so I was honored to do, and definitely had to have him here on the show. Without further ado, Desmond Powell. What's good, man?
What's up, man? I appreciate that. That's a great intro, man. I'm humbled. I'm humbled. But of course, man, it's great to be here. Obviously this show in particular, man, Artists Like Us. I mean, I think that's a great title of what I think you and I are both about. So I'm honored, man, to be a part of this.
Thank you. I had to put it in there before someone else took it, because now I'm seeing other people that are like adjusting.
For sure. And now especially Kendrick too. Kendrick ain't helping either.
Right. Yeah, I was like, I better start this podcast.
Yeah, man, that's how it is.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, you're pretty familiar with as far as kind of how I do my thing usually when it comes to the pod. But usually I'm a big origin story guy. I always have to start from how it happened, and everything. So kind of talk to me a little bit as far as just maybe your earliest memory of music and or basketball. Kind of what was it like growing up when it comes to those two things?
So yeah, man. So for me, I've enjoyed basketball probably since I was at least the earliest I could say about 4 or 5 years old. It was something I always gravitated towards. I was really a big sports kid, but basketball always took like first place for me. It was the one I always went to and everything like that. I loved baseball, loved football. Had a little soccer phase, but basketball was just always the one. And so as I got older, that kind of just took the forefront. And then as I always say, like music to me, like, especially hip hop, it's just like in us, bro. Like, from inception, man. It's just something I feel like that we're born with.
Yeah.
So, I always gravitated towards that. I think I was a very casual fan, being a kid watching 106 in Park, things of that nature. VH1 Soul, even, all the bro, there were so many shows back in the day, man. And I
Yeah.
feel like they were always on the TV. So I always gravitated towards those. But it wasn't, and just making a longer story short, once I got to college was when I really was like, okay, like I want to get into this hip hop thing. And that's when everything changed for me. Like, no longer am I a casual fan. Like, I'm really tapped into the difference of like rap and hip hop. And so like obviously I started out with the greats. So I started out with Tupac, and it was like I wanted to find a way to love hip hop the way I love basketball. So I'm like, I have to go deeper than like the average person. So I'm studying all of Tupac's interviews. I'm just like I'm listening to all his albums. That's when I really got into his first album, Tupac Lives Now. Again, for him, that's an album that flopped, but like to me, it was really cool to just go back to his start and see who he was before the nose ring and the bandana. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I'm going down the rabbit hole. That bro, that takes me everywhere. Like you go to Biggie and then you go to Big Pun. From Big Pun, it's like you go to Nas, and then I'm going back. Nas connects me to Rakim. Rakim connects me to Big Daddy Kane. I mean, everything, bro.
And then during this time, kind of as you're doing that, when did were you doing basketball as you were kind of when you were listening to all these great artists and kind of connecting the dots and checking out interviews and really diving into kind of what these cats are saying and whatnot? How was were you kind of doing the basketball thing as you were doing all of that, or?
A little bit, because at that time, especially in college, like at that time, my hoop dreams had faded. Like that wasn't in the picture. I hadn't started podcasting yet. So that it was kind of like just I was always a fan and whatnot, but hip hop was like my main like studying, because I was already such a huge basketball fan. So um it didn't really, and I guess that's a good segue into hip to the games, that didn't really come to fruition till I would say 2019, maybe this, or if it wasn't December 2019, it was definitely like December 2020. If my years are right, but that was when I was like, because again, my radio background, I was going to school for radio, so I was learning about the business of radio, and then I was kind of like, well, this podcast thing, like you could, if you're really about that life, you could make it, you could make it like a formidable source of income if you really grind. So
Right.
I like the idea of that. And that's when I was like, okay, what can my show be about? And for the longest of time, bro, I couldn't think of nothing. Like it was such a general idea for me. But then I ended up having the senior speech. Actually, I was a communications major, so we had the big speech at the end of the semester, and it just so happened that our theme was social change. And I think for them, it was like we had such a tumultuous 2020 that makes sense. But for me, it was like, oh shoot, I could do something on hip hop. Like that would be really powerful. And then once I did that speech, I did well on that. Um, that's when it hit me like, yo, like, I think your podcast has been under your nose for the longest of time. Like, you fuse basketball, you fuse hip hop. Like, you could make this, like, you could run with that. And that's kind of when it connected to me was around like late 2020.
That's awesome, man. So were you, because I know you say you were a communications major, and then you were studying radio at that time. Because did you actually do like some radio stuff for like the school, or what was kind of that experience?
Yeah, man. So my major was communications, but my concentration was radio. So I was part of the student run radio station called Spark HD, and I went to Olivet Nazarene University, so their radio station was Spark HD, and yeah, I got a lot of decent experience there for pretty much the last 3.5 years of my college career. And that it was dope. It was dope. Like I said, I learned a lot. I don't even know if he would ever see this, but big shout out to my professor, Brian Utter. That guy, he was one of those guys, Jerrell, where like you have those people in your life where it feels like they just know everything about the industry that they're in.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, he was one of those people where I felt like I could learn no matter what we were talking about, I would learn something. And that was where my passion for radio and just I think to some degree just my natural kind of gifts were emerging because I had denied them for so long, being such a stubborn young kid trying to get to the NBA, being delusional. I think J. Cole talks about that as well, like that delusional confidence you have sometimes. And I was so stuck in the clouds, man, with that. It took me a little while to realize some of the true like gifts just as a human being that I possessed, and radio helped me find that, bro. And
Yeah.
like I said, once I found hip hop, like it became easy after that. Like, oh, I can listen to hip hop and talk about it for a living. Oh yeah, like that'd be something to pursue, So that's kind of how that started.
Yeah, yeah. I know you mentioned before as far as like your hoop dreams fading. I was curious as far as like when did you decide that you wanted to kind of maneuver into a different path? Because it reminds me of like my dreams of like being a jazz guitarist fading.
Oh
It's like
yeah,
I was in
man.
like jazz, I was a jazz ensemble. I talked about this previous episode, but I was a jazz ensemble, and I had a semester of that, and I was just like, yeah, I just don't know if I can do it. Like after seeing
It's
like
it's the worst. It's the
yeah,
worst.
yeah, like the complexity and everything, and then like I should have started with piano. Like, gosh darn it, you know what I mean? And then just like it's tough pulling from that, but it's more,
Yes.
yeah, but it's almost more important to be real, not just realistic with yourself, but just really like targeting like this is a passion, and then this is something where it's like I can really sink my teeth into and like confident about. But I guess as far as kind of speak to, kind of what led to you kind of maneuvering specifically.
So yeah, it was like um probably my senior year, 2016. Again, I had tried out for the basketball teams, got cut multiple times. again, the stubborn ambition was just like, no, like you can still do it. But I think deep down, I knew. I always say it kind of hit me when I saw my brother too. For those who may not know, I'm a twin, so obviously we're walking this same journey together, and he's like way ahead of me. You know, he's like I could see him drifting towards art, and that's when I was kind of like, maybe I should do the same thing.
Being a little brother, I've I've had similar experiences too, as far as like my brother getting into theater and then I get into theater. Same with like film and stuff too. So that's very resonant to my experience.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's how it goes. And so as he's getting into art, I'm like, well, what's my thing, you know? And I just I didn't know what that was for the longest time, bro. And especially with college coming up, it was like I gotta pick my major. There's nothing on here that I enjoy really. So as I was picking majors, like I had started with physical education because again, basketball. But after a while, I just felt like that wasn't necessarily where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So radio was really the only one. Like I remember looking at the majors list, and I'm like, this is the only one that like sticks out. And like, you know, my faith is important to me, and I heard like God audibly say like, you could do this, and that was the
Yeah.
only one He said that to. And so that's when I picked radio, and you know, like you said, it's really just that realization that you got to have. Like, you got to be real with yourself at some point and be like, okay, this path that you have for yourself isn't really what you thought it was, right? So you got to reassess some things. And I had to sit with myself and say, like, okay, what are you beyond this? Like, you made this your identity for so long. Like, you got to start to explore and give yourself that time and that grace to figure out what it is you want to do next. And for me, you know, like I said, that was a long journey, but as I fell in love with hip hop and I made that decision of saying like, okay, I can have other passions as much as I love basketball, I can love other things as well. And so, yeah, man, that's really it. I think like I just had to have that real conversation with myself and say like, yo, it doesn't mean that this is necessarily the end of the road, right? You don't have to stop liking basketball, but this is another thing that you can get into. And I'm happy I made that decision in the looking back.
Yeah. No, yeah, man. No, kudos to you. I think those are hard conversations to have too, so I commend you for that, and at the end of the day, it just, kind of being self-aware of that is really, it's important, the one thing that I always found an interest of is, when it comes to, your analysis when it comes to basketball, so it's like not every, it's like, so like, some people can play professionally. Not everyone can do analysis, or doesn't do a good job of articulating specific things, and I think you have a real gift of that. Whether you play, yeah, of course, whether you play professionally or not. It's funny because I've seen certain arguments too when it comes to I guess to have I don't know if dichotomy would be the right word, but the notion as far as like some people think that, like if for people who commentate and they don't fight professionally, it's like, oh, they can't commentate. But I'm like, well, maybe they can. Maybe they're seeing something that can help the person who's actually do it. I feel like there's time and time again. I had a video on my channel where I was talking about Rick Rubin, and how like he's like one of the greatest producers of all time, and he's like not a musician at all, But
Right.
right, but he has such a great just sensibility of understanding artists and kind of their process, and then being able to contribute in some way, shape, or form. And he's like, he's produced some of the biggest like acts, what I mean, when it comes to music and whatnot. But kind of steering back to to you, like your analysis, I really just something definitely is like is great, what I mean, and yeah, definitely appreciate. Kind of talk to me a little bit as far as like your passions when it comes to like the NBA, maybe some players that kind of like are just kind of one of the foundations of this like this guy is it, and then kind of tell me also about like how the NBA is now and how you feel about it.
Okay. So yeah, I appreciate that, Jerrell, man, because that's kind of how I looked at it too. Like, and again, that gets to me too sometimes, where I'm like, dang, like a lot of these companies, and whether I'm like job hunting or like I'm actually kind of thinking of like big picture stuff, like they pick these guys and girls who are like, they may have had the experience that I don't have and things of that nature, and that can get to me sometimes. But I think again, to like what we talk about, like you just keep showing up and you trust what you got, and that's something that I really try to do. So I really appreciate that, bro. But so as far as like the NBA, man, like I always say my first favorite player ever was Tracy McGrady.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, man. So like that era, being a kid, seeing like Allen Iverson, Tracy, Kobe, Shaq, like all these guys in the All-Star games, and they played with such passion, and that was something that I wanted to emulate, and even as I talk about the game, right? I think there are some guys like Jamal Crawford, Kevin Garnett. Like I love hearing them talk about the game because you can just feel the reverence they have for it. Again, to your point, I know there are countless guys in hip hop where when they have a microphone, whether they're rappers or like journalists, when they talk about this genre, when they talk about this culture, you can tell that there's a genuine love. And that's what always stood out to me, man. So even as I got older and I'm discovering my voice, it's like I always wanted to be like that, where it's like, Desmond may not have played, he may not have the crazy experience. Obviously when you're in this space, right, it's not even about being right all the time, right? But you just feel like you have something to say. And I'm like, as long as I get in front of this microphone, somebody's gonna feel what I'm saying. Like I can't be the only one that thinks this thing, right? And if I am,
Right.
that can open up a bigger conversation. So I'm like, okay, cool. So that was kind of my approach towards it. And even then, like I was mentioning earlier about like the reverence and passion. And that to answer your other question about like how I feel about the NBA today, it's funny because I was literally just talking to my brother about this morning. Like I feel like such a middle child. And the reason I say that, like even to connect to J. Cole, right? The phase J. Cole was going through in 2018 when he made KOD, he was at such a point where he's like, I can kind of see where the little pumps and all these guys are coming from. But if we can bring some of the stuff that I came up with, right? Like the real OG homework stuff that I came up with,
Yeah.
I can be the middle child. I can be the bridge for these generations, right? And I feel like with basketball, that's exactly where I'm at today. Like there are a lot of people around my age who are like, such the thing I admire about Gen Z is that we are such forward thinkers. Like we are so ready to like grab the world and change it for the better. At the same time, I get a little triggered, for lack of a better term, because we also are so quick to like tell the OGs like, okay, like it's cool, we got this. And I'm like, no, no. There's such valuable information back here that we can take with us as we walk forward.
Mm.
And that's how I feel about the NBA. It's a lot of great basketball now, but I realize as I get older, I miss like the way guys played with purpose, where every possession mattered. And I notice a lot of the teams I like to watch today are the ones that are they play a little uglier. Like they're not afraid to get ugly wins, right? They're not it's not always three pointers and pick and rolls every trip down. It's like, I'm not afraid to get into a guy's chest and get an and one, right? I'm not afraid to, excuse me, I'm not afraid to make the game a little dirty. And that's what I feel like is missing. Like this game that we see now is full of depth, right? Full of talent. That like we're in an era where I would say like if Tracy McGrady, if young LeBron, if they came in the league today, they would have way more help than they did back then. And
Mm.
that's the exciting part. But at the same time, I'm like, there are some things that this generation could use. There's not a lot of patience nowadays. There's not a lot of decisiveness, I feel like. So I always say like I love the NBA, but I realize now that there is an NBA that I love. And I'm always going to be a fan. I'm always going to, watch, but there are some things that I do miss that I wish we could kind of bridge with this new style that we have. So the game, I'm not one of those people that says the game is boring, but I will say that there is a lack of purpose with it sometimes. There's a lot of rushed possessions, things of that nature that I could get into, but yeah, man, I enjoy it, but I do think that there's some things that we should take from the previous generations.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely well said. Yeah, because I feel like, being a 90s kid, like, I remember seeing just like those tough plays where you're really fighting to get into the paint, and then like people are scoring. They're scoring to score, not just obviously I feel like it's like a BCAD, but it's like prior Steph Curry.
Yes, bro, it is. It is.
So like, like seeing like just really like just like tough aggression, or people just trying to make a two, and then also like it's more strategy as far as, okay, we'll send it to X guy for the three, or around this time, versus like everyone trying to make a three. Because like I feel like after Steph, like that's the one thing, like I do have to give Steph Curry credit, where obviously like a lot of people will be like, well, he can't, do this and then this and that, and I'm like, yeah, but he's literally has changed basketball with how he approaches it. Now everyone does the same thing. Not everyone's as good as him, but that's powerful when you have this paradigm shift, But now watching it, I just feel like it's not necessarily laziness, but it's just people are very quick to just, let's just shoot the three, and then I can just kind of do my thing, and try to defend or what have you, and obviously I'm not the super analysis guy as far as for sports, but as far as just how I see it, it's just I wish where there was really tough aggression of like where the twos are just as important as the threes, and it's like, let's not rush to do X, Y, and Z. Let's and then obviously like the fouling game is like completely different now. Like I remember seeing Kobe getting smacked up by like dudes, and like him like having to like go after them, and then I'm seeing LeBron, like he gets touched and he like throws himself across the across the court. Oh, you drew, like I was like, wait, drawing fouls is a statistic now? Like what the fuck are we doing? For my French, but I was like, this is ridiculous. So it's like those are like my like frustrations. You know what I mean when it comes to the game today. I feel like it's been a lot. I feel like the last games that really had me excited about basketball, and it might be just like an obvious thing, but it had to be when the 3-peat 4-peat era for like the Lakers, with Kobe and Shaq, like those are the times where it was just, there's just, to me, speaking for me, a lot of passion still left, and this is like after like the Jordan days where we saw some of the greatest basketball like ever, you know what I mean? Seeing Michael Jordan slam dunk across the, jumping halfway across the court to slam dunk and all that stuff. It's like, you're never seeing that now. So it's
y'all
just
were waiting for somebody to take that torch back.
Yeah.
It was kind of the awkward stage. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I was talking to my nephew as far as just like, like when I was witnessing Shaq breaking the backboard, and during like a slam dunk, and I think it was in the Magic at the time, and I was like, that was one of the first times ever where they come back from a commercial break and the first shot is the broken backboard that's on the court. I was just like, yo, that is a moment in history, bro. I was like I don't, because I was telling him, like, because he's a big Golden State fan, and I was like, hey, do you remember any time of you watching the basketball so far where you come back from a commercial break and they're trying to replace the backboard,
bro?
And he was like, no. And I was like, it's just a moment in history,
Man, that's gangster. That's gangster. You got a great point about that, bro, because nobody's doing it. Obviously, they changed like the rims and whatnot so that it wouldn't happen, but still.
Right. Oof. Yeah, that's what I said too. I said they probably changed. Where it's not the same material anymore, so that can't happen again. But the fact that it did is just crazy, Like seeing glass shatter across like everyone in the paint. It's like, holy shit, this is ridiculous. Crazy. But let me pick your brain a bit as far as like some of your favorite hip hop artists, and then also maybe some songs or albums that like really stick out to you that. That you're just like, like, yeah, it's kind of stuck through with you. It's like one of your favorites.
Yeah. So, artists, like I said, Pac is my one. Love Jay. I feel like as we get older, he gets in like more of the like mixed reviews conversations. Which is cool. Like I said, I get it because it's like, when you study hip hop and your palate grows, it's like the best thing ever, But
Yeah.
Jay's always top for me. Love Wale. I
Mm.
know he's been in that underrated category. Love Wale.
Very versatile. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, man. Love Common. Guru from Gangstar. I always loved his simplicity. To me, he was one of the guys where I kind of saw myself in him because I'm like, he's not always going to hit you with the crazy punchline. He's not always going to hit you with the crazy flow pattern, but he gets to the point, and
Yeah.
it's like I thought that was really dope. Love Most Def, love Sky Zoo.
Yes.
Sky Zoo, man, I'm guilty. I'm not crazy on his discography, but obviously like the stuff that I've heard, bro. Oh my gosh, your favorite
Yeah.
rapper's favorite rapper, like he's in that tier, man. Like,
Yeah. Did you listen to that album where it was him and Pete Rock? They did like a joint producing project and they had like a bunch of artists on it. Have
you
you?
talk about Sky Zoo?
Yeah,
I
Skies.
know which one you're talking about, I
Yeah,
think,
I
but
think it's called like the
I
Retropolitan or some. Or
yes,
yeah, that miss
yes,
crazy.
yeah, bro. Yeah, they did their thing on that one. They got to run it back, man. Especially after Pete Rock worked with Common, they got to run it. He got to run it back with Sky Zoo, man. But
Yeah,
yeah, those are a few that come to mind. I'm it's a lot, but those are definitely the few that come to mind first.
definitely, definitely. What's a song to you that is what's a yeah? I would say what are maybe some hip hop songs that you feel that are very underrated? Like they're like under the radar, and you're like, this means more than people should have their eyes on it. You know that you maybe have done an analysis. I know you've done like some great analysis on your for hip to the games. One of my favorites has always been Illmatic. You going through that, definitely check out his podcast, of course, his channel, but it does a amazing breakdown of each song, very detailed. But has there been ever a song or maybe an artist, too, as far as where you're like, he doesn't get talked about enough or she doesn't get talked about enough?
Oh man, that's a good one. Um, I mean, in some respects, I want to say like Talib Kweli. I feel like he's the poster child of like miracle lyrical rap, but he's the way that dude. I feel like he could just he could rap like for days. He could rap on the spot. Lots of good word choice. I think his parents are educators, like so it makes sense. He's somebody where I feel like, dang, like obviously he didn't have like crazy hits, wasn't always in the limelight, but like he's a great definition, I feel like, of like how to do this at an elite level.
Mm,
But when you first was saying the question, I mean, I thought of two songs instantly. Well,
mm,
my favorite hip hop song all time is Respiration.
mm,
Black Star, Common, love that song. Me, Respiration is such a perfect blend of poetry and like narrative.
mm.
I always say, like that hook, bro, so much on my mind that I can't recline. Blasting holes in the night till she bled sunshine.
Mm.
That's Shakespearean to me, bro.
Yeah.
That's Shakespearean to me. And like that's a song I feel like everybody should listen to. Like if I'm introducing somebody to hip hop, that song right there. Now I also thought of Words of Wisdom by Tupac. Um, again, that's going to his first album,
Mm.
but I felt like that is such a great representation of where a 19-year-old Tupac was. Like to me, that songs like that were the thesis of what he ultimately wanted to do with music. Obviously, as he got, more into his fame, into his limelight, he's making stuff for the ladies, he's making stuff that's fun and that's cool. But I felt like he didn't really tap back into that. He showed it on Strictly for My Ninjas, right? But I think he was really trying to tap back in during Me Against the World. And to
That's my
me,
favorite album from him.
yes, bro, mine
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Mine too. I mean, for me, that song, like the way he was just not afraid to like put the mirror in front of America, if you will, and just say like, hey, I'm 19 years old and I'm hip to what you're doing. Like and now I'm a hip hop musician. Like just wait till I get all my fans and I connect with like the black youth and educate them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That to me is such a great representation of that. So like Respiration is like my top dog. Words of Wisdom is more so like my underrated. Like, hey, here's a sleeper that you probably don't know about, especially coming from Pac, right? So that's how I see those.
Nice, nice. I think you make a good point as far as when it comes to like educating the youth and and yeah, and definitely Pac kind of brought up like topics that maybe not a lot of other rappers during that time kind of did, like having tracks that are uplifting women and, tracks that are like I still see no changes, and like, and of course these are like kind of maybe latter half songs, but, you know, um, I feel like I was having a conversation with D Skills Harris, shout out D Skills. And I got to get your opinion on this. I almost forgot about this. I got to get your opinion on this on the Kendrick Super Bowl halftime show. We got to talk about it. I know you don't want to talk about it. I know you don't want to talk about it. We got to talk about it.
It's all good, bro. It's all good. I knew he was coming up at some point.
Yeah, you know, you already know. But like I was having a conversation with D Skills Harris as far as like, because he was like, well, like he's like it was good, but he was like he wanted more hits, and he was like the after show was better than the football, the game, and I was like, well, understandably, but I feel like when artists are making music for not just the purpose of making a hit, but also for the purpose of I have the ability to send a message that for where we are in these current times and how things aren't hunky-dory. This isn't just a hit you hear on the radio and, oh, that was dope. Oh, we should have played this. Like, no, I'm going to make a message and a point of how things are messed up or like, hey, we see what's going on, or we're going to stay resilient, and I've always appreciated that where Kendrick kind of puts those things in bit by bit, and I thought it was great that he took it upon himself to just to do that, you know what I mean? And obviously he's promoting his album too. It's a charting album, GNX. It's not everyone's favorite album, but I think it's a really good album. But I think as far as for the actual halftime show, the design of it, the different Easter eggs that he puts in, having the PlayStation controller icons at the top and how they resemble these different things, and you have all these black dancers representing the American flag and things like that. I'm just, so, and everyone's reaction to it was just so like, okay, this is why we're divided as a country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you have people that are just like, yeah, it was good. Wish had more hits. And then there was some stupid racist actor that was just like, it was funny because Samuel Jackson had a line in the halftime show as far as like, oh, don't make it too ghetto, and then this white guy's like, oh, it was too ghetto. I was like, you just literally proved his point of his message, you racist idiot.
Right.
So I guess with all of that being said, my point was as far as like I wish we had more hip hop artists, rappers specifically, that preach those messages more in some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be like straight at your head, like Public Enemy, like Fear of a Black Planet, which I think is, to me, is like the best album name of all time. I think that's
for sure.
Yeah, but I kind of wish that more artists focused on that versus like these beefs that don't mean anything. They don't uplift anything. They're fun. Right? The Drake and Kendrick thing was fun, but I thought it was poignant that song was not in the album. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, Kendrick gets it. He's like, this is diss stuff. This isn't what I want to talk about on my project. You think
I'm waking up thinking about Drake? I mean, I am, because I'm very calculated. But like, you think I'm just day to day? Yeah, man, I feel you.
Right. So, but yeah, I guess this, after my rant, just gotta, I guess, speak to as far as, do you feel that more artists kind of utilize like the opportunity of them having a fan base and able to communicate to a mass array of people with like a message that would be more important for like, current generations or future generations? Kind of speak to that if you would.
So yeah, I guess I'll share my thoughts on the Super Bowl to kind of answer that. So like I'm with you, bro. Like I think especially when it got announced that Kendrick Lamar was doing the Super Bowl halftime, you had to realize that okay, this is going to be entirely different because anytime Kendrick Lamar gets a stage, he is going to do the extraordinary because he is like I always say, he is hip hop's playwright. That is literally the torch that he has taken throughout his career. So yes, the high school me, was hoping for okay, we should get something like a Mad City, you know what I'm saying? We should get some hits off that. We should get some maybe if he wants to take it back to Section 80, like, hey, you never know. Like I that was my first thought too. Like it would have been nice to hear some of those anthems, but at the same time, I love what he did production wise. I was surprised that he pretty much went all GNX. Most of the songs were GNX, but I was like, this is genius work right here. Like even from the jump, before Kendrick said anything, Samuel Jackson had a bar, right? Like, welcome to the great American game, the Super Bowl, this performance, and the way this world works.
Mm, mm,
He dropped a triple entendre before Kendrick could even drop any entendre,
right.
right? And to your point, that's hip hop, man. And when you can use a stage like that to do that, that's what we love about it, man. Like I said, I would have loved to hear Kendrick do like all the hits and kind of have fun with this, like celebrate where he is, right? But again, it's just like when you have this microphone, it's what we talk about all the time, Jerrell. When you have this microphone, there's a opportunity for you to do what's typical, and there's an opportunity for you to do what's extraordinary. Kendrick Lamar chose the latter, and
Right.
I enjoyed it very much. I think it's definitely going to be one of those performances where, at least I hope, the people that were asleep during the actual moment in time are going to look back on it maybe 5 years from now and be like, oh, okay, the gray hair is coming in. I got a little salt and pepper now. Like I feel like tapping in my wisdom, and I realize what he's doing. I realize what that moment was. Maybe I was too young to appreciate it back then, but now it's hitting me in a different way. So I
Yeah.
think there's a lane for that. Like I said, I just love when hip hop shows up. I love when hip hop looks rap in the face and says, "No, this is what it was always about." Right? This is what it's always about. Like I've told you before, I always said rap is in a roundabout way, rap is hip hop in the wrong hands. And when I say the wrong hands, I mean like
Mm,
corporate kind
yeah.
of entities, right?
Yeah.
You commercialize it, you commercialize hip hop, and now all of a sudden it's how can we get the money? That's when it turns into rap. There's a lot of rap legends, there are a lot of great rap songs, but not a lot of those people can do what Kendrick just did. It was a outright display of the difference between hip hop and rap, and I think that's why I loved it so much.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely too. And I think it is something that is going to age over time, really well over time. And it's so funny too because like there is, it's I mean, I won't go too much into this because I have a lot to say about it. But even just like the message silencing, like people were trying to spread this rhetoric. Oh, I didn't hear anything he was saying, or all this like ridiculousness. You know
So
what I mean?
irritated, bro.
Yeah.
Shut up.
So yeah, yeah. I didn't hear everything he was saying, and I said, "Really? I heard everything fine."
Oh yeah, bro.
So is this great? Is this crazy? But yeah, I definitely maybe too. Also in my old age, I was just like, no, he did the right way of approaching it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he could have did a bunch of additional hits. He could have brought on some people from Black Hippie and all that stuff, and it would have been great. But I'm just like, the last 2 weeks have been crazy. So if you're just to ignore that just to do whatever, I was like, I don't want to hit like if to me if he did that, like there's no reason why people should be mad at Nelly and Snoop, because to me it would have been the same thing, right? You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, I'm just gonna ignore these things and just do this thing, even though like we're like, it's like like we're gonna do this as like the world is burning around us, like all this crazy stuff happening around us. But I'm gonna ignore that because it's Super Bowl. And I'm just gonna do a bunch of hits and call it. I was like, nobody should be talking about Snoop and Nelly if Kendrick would have did that. So I'm glad Kendrick
That's
did
true.
do that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man. But yeah, talk to me a little bit as far as speaking of hip hop. This guy also raps. Desmond's got bars. Hashtag Desmond's got bars. I know you dropped. We worked it. I've had the pleasure of working with you on some tracks. The Days, which is out and produced by L Summers. Shout out to L Summers. Also, L Summers
sir.
produced a track and rapped on "Pray for the World We're Living In" on Black on Top, our dual rap group, which Desmond had a dope bar or dope verse on there for "Pray for the World," which I think we're working on a visual like. Oh, not a music video, but like a visual video for that.
That's
Which
dope.
I thought you did a really dope job on, man.
Thank you,
Um,
man. Hey, y'all killed that project too, man. Like,
oh,
I
thank
don't
you.
I don't want to get too deep into that. I don't want to
Yeah,
cut you off, but
yeah,
just
yeah,
like a story about that. Like when me and El Summers were emailing back and forth for my solo tracks, he had mentioned like, same thing you did to me. He was like, "As I got beats, it's a pleasure working with you, but it's not gonna stop here. I got beats." And he's like, I think I got a lot of stuff that you would really like. And the way he's typing it, I'm thinking like, oh, he's got a bunch. Like obviously he's a producer, so I know he's got a vault. But and then it was like fast forward, y'all announced that project, and I said, oh shoot. And then y'all dropped the first few singles, and I'm like, I think these are the beats he was talking about. And I'm like, because this is like, when you the caption, one of y'all was like, we worked really hard on this. And I said,
yeah.
I heard those beats, bro, and I heard what y'all were saying, and I'm like, nah, they've been in the lab. I was like, so yeah, man, it was an honor
Appreciate
to
you.
be a part of that. Yeah, for sure, man.
Appreciate you. Yeah, man. No, yeah, and those the two pack that you dropped, those tracks were dope too, man.
Thank you.
Of course, are we expecting more potential music from you? I know obviously you're doing a bunch of stuff, obviously with Hip to the Games and with your own channel on YouTube, but can we expect any more stuff maybe coming up here?
So I guess I should say yes because last time I made the mistake of saying no, and then that's when L emailed me and he was like, "So yeah, man, we're gonna drop a Pray for the World," and I had just told my listeners like, "Yeah, not really, don't expect anything." And it was like a week. He's like, "Oh yeah, man, we're gonna try Pray for the World next week. You're gonna get that distro email, bro." I was like, "Wow, okay." So I guess, and again, because you never say never, man. I guess I should just say yes, optimistic.
Yeah,
Haven't really been writing like that as of late, but I mean, at this point, if I get the itch, I'll write something. Obviously, if there's a select few people, obviously, Jay Powell, L Summers, what I'm saying, a lot of guys in our network who might hit me up and be like, "Yo, Des, I got some beats for you," and or hey, man, like I think you might want to jump on this. I'll you might hear from me if any of those people hit me up. But as of right now, I have nothing. But you just never know.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's fire, man. That's fire. Well, man, any lasting things? Anything you want to promote for Hip to the Games, your channel, anything coming up, kind of before we close out?
Yeah, man. So if you would like to follow Hip to the Games, you can follow at Hip to the Games, HIP the number two, DAGAMES. Obviously, if you're watching, you can see it in the background here. That's the socials on all platforms. Very active on Instagram, Twitter. Not so much TikTok because they threaten TikTok's life seemingly every other month. So it's like you never know if you should be in or be out, but definitely Instagram and Twitter. Obviously at Desmond Powell underscore if you want to follow the personal stuff. Yeah, I got the solo channel too, solo YouTube channel. That is Desmond Powell H2DG. But if you just research, if you look up Desmond Powell, you should be able to find it. That's a lot of short form content. A lot of basketball stuff has been on there. I haven't done as much hip hop stuff as I would like to do. But that's more so short form content. that kind of deviates from hip to the games. But yeah, man, outside of that, you know what I'm saying? Support your people, you know. Listen to artists like us. Listen to my
Appreciate
guys
it.
guitar podcast, you know what I'm saying? Listen to the music, you know. Like it's we're in a very fortunate position, you know,
Yeah.
to we just have access to all this stuff at the tip of our fingers, and I'm fortunate and blessed to be connected with people like yourself, you know what I'm saying, who are as equally passionate and really care about what we do. So, you know, I would say to our listener here, just, you know, don't be afraid to support. Don't be afraid to be the only person at the show, you know, for an
Yeah.
analogy. You know what I'm saying? Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to be the only person with a ticket, because when they blow up, that person is going to think of you because you were there from the beginning. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
little stuff like that, man. So support your people, support music, podcasts. You know, like my OG, shout out my guy Willie Freeman off my 19 Media Group family. He said about hip hop, he said, people act like it was always accessible. And he said, man, take it from me. He was like, we always had to get our shovel, get our pickaxe, and dig. And
Wow.
again, I would say the same thing, you know, with especially with a platform like this, artists like us, you got somebody in Jerrell who brings you artists every now and then who are doing the thing, man. That's what this thing is. Whether it's hip hop or jazz, that's what it is. So um long-winded, but you know, support your people. Appreciate you as always, Jerrell, man. This was fun.
Yeah, man. Likewise. Likewise. Well said. All right, everybody. Well, that's going to wrap it up here for artists like us. Once again, I am your host, Jerrell Powell, and thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you guys next time. I down to what's in my headphones. Chill and I lay back to the strokes. Set my mind on cruise control. Music revolves around my mind like it's an access. Sometimes I'm like this.